Hi everyone, welcome. I'm Hannah, I'm part of the SquareKicker team. Thanks for joining us today. We're excited to take this time to share a little bit more about SquareKicker with you. Drop us a hi in the comments and let us know when you're tuning in from. I know it's early for some and late for others, so let us know where in the world you are. The webinar will be about 1 hour long. We'll be looking at SquareKicker updates, the new scrolling effects tool, Sticky, what is it and how to use it, some helpful tips for getting the most out of SquareKicker, a live tutorial, and finishing with a Q&A session. Pop your questions in the Q&A below. You can upvote other people's questions to let us know what you really want to hear about, and we'll get to those at the end. I wanted to take a quick moment to introduce you to the SquareKicker team, so you know the faces behind the people that are interacting with you and building your tool. So we've got myself and Nick, who are the co-founders. We've got Nat and Rowan, who are our lead engineers, Lauren, who's on the design team, and we're really pleased to welcome Hayden and Vinod, who are on the dev team. One of our company values here is our differences make us stronger. So we're really excited to have two fresh faces offering their skills in making SquareKicker even stronger. One of the first things we do when we start a new project is to gather around a whiteboard for a brainstorming session. During one of these sessions last year, right in the middle was this big statement, and it said empowering designers. And that really sums up the heart of what we want to do here at SquareKicker. We want to empower you to make your businesses and your designs better. I wanted to give you a little update on what's been happening at SquareKicker since our last session. So we met on a webinar last year in September. And since then, we have had 2,200 new users sign up to SquareKicker and 3,700 new websites connect with SquareKicker. We're truly humbled that you are finding SquareKicker a useful piece of your workflow and are thrilled to see what you're creating and the amazing designs you're making with these tools. We've released some new tools over the last 6 months and we'll continue to do so over 2022. We're also working on some really exciting ideas to help empower you to create more profitable, sustainable, and enjoyable businesses. And we look forward to sharing these with you throughout the year. So make sure you stay tuned and keep in touch with the emails. We also have the SquareKicker community on Facebook, which is a great place to get little tips, updates, and just interact with what's happening at SquareKicker. So if you haven't already, join us over there. One of the tools that we were really excited about was the scrolling effects tool, not to be confused with Squarespace's scrolling block, which just happened to be released in about the same week. We maybe should have talked to them about our naming. This particular tool was something that we had been planning since day one at SquareKicker, but we knew we had to put some of those building blocks in place before we released such an exciting animation tool. In a quick minute, I'm going to pass you over to Nick and Rowan, and they'll talk you through the full power of this tool. But here's a quick video introducing SquareKicker's scrolling effects. I'm going to jump over into the chat, so put your questions in the Q&A, and I'll see you later on.
Hope you guys can hear us all well. Yeah, this is exciting to be back here again. And I'm Nick and
Rowan. Thanks everyone for coming, obviously.
Yeah, so we are going to just run you through a couple cool tutorials. One is, again, Hannah mentioned, is that the new scrolling block tool that we've just come out with, or scrolling effects, and then unpack sticky. So to do that, we've got a Squarespace site up and running and loaded for you. So if you have any questions, of course, about sticky or about scrolling that we're not getting to that you still have, definitely be sure to put those into the Q&A panel, and we'll be sure to get those at the end as well. So we'll kind of unpack as much as we possibly can and hope it makes sense to you, and then we'll jump into it. So I guess without any further ado, we'll jump into the tutorial. So we'll get Vinod here, and he's going to shrink us down into the corner somewhere, and then we'll be able to see what's on the screen here for you guys to see. Cool. So I'm gonna let Rowan kind of slide down this page. So this is kind of our demo site that we created earlier, just for the video that you just watched. And as you can see, things are kind of sliding in from the left and to the right. They're using kind of different effects. You can also see kind of some things are coming down while some things are coming in. That's a really fun effect there. It's taking two images and actually butting them up together. And then of course they slide in and then they rotate and they clip together, which is a really cool effect. Then we have some really cool, unique kind of almost parallax scrolling images that are kind of coming up and down the screen using SquareKicker there to do that effect. So that was really fun to make as well. And I think we're actually in the middle of the screen, so I hope you can see too much. There we go. We're getting smaller, and we'll stick us down the bottom left-hand corner somewhere as well. Probably good to be good there. Cool. So we have some blur effects and even some scale effects with this kind of this big, huge house that's showing up. And of course, some fun popping up effects there with some scale and some opacity. And then this wasn't in the video, but we've got two titles that are kind of parallax scrolling left and right with each other. So there's some really fun and exciting things that you can make with SquareKicker now. And basically, if you ever wanted to make a Squarespace site not look like a Squarespace site, welcome to SquareKicker. That's what we're all about, just giving you guys, the designers, the power to kind of unleash your creative thought. So yeah, so without any further ado, we'll jump into the next section down below. I guess Rowan will open up the site there, and we'll go into edit mode. Edit mode's a fun place because it's kind of that WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get. And so anything you're doing in Squarespace, we're paying a lot of attention to detail to make sure that what you're doing or creating, you can see what it is while you're creating. That's the whole power of SquareKicker. Rather having to refresh your page or use it, we're actually using a lot of that JavaScript is firing while you build it. So you actually can see exactly what's going on at the same time. And so you can see those sliders are moving. You can see all the effects moving. It's a really fun, interactive way to kind of play with something before you're actually ready to release it. So if we scroll down here, we have a simple image here set up for you. We're going to show some cool scrolling effects here. So we'll head into the Advanced tab, and that's if you're on a free trial, you of course have access to all SquareKicker features, including premium features. And if you're on a pro or designer, you have access to scroll effects on a live website going forward as well. So we'll open up scroll effects, and we here have a simple timeline. We have what's called a simple timeline and a custom timeline. So the simple timeline, if we look at that little dot in the middle with a triangle, and that's the image. That's that thing kind of traversing left and right. So where you see that kind of triangle moving, that's going to be the center point of where the image is going to end up landing. And then as it moves and scrolls across the screen, you're going to see it kind of passing through. So the timeline is really important, because if you want to make effects start and stop and finish at certain places, you want it to be where that timeline is going to be. So at the very, very beginning, if we scroll to the really beginning to the left where that triangle is, that's the image is still coming in, and now it's starting to scroll in. So you can see that kind of really interactiveness of where that timeline is. Now, if we put some effects on this now, we have two kind of effects. We have a entry effect and we have an exit effect. So that's the beginning timeline to the dot is the entrance, and from the dot to the exit is the exit. So, or the last bar. So those are those two kind of entry and exit points. So let's run. What should we do first? We should flick on some horizontal.
I always like horizontal. It's very easy to see and very easy to tell that something's happening, which is lovely.
Yeah, so that's right away there's a huge impact. Now it's something we like to kind of point out is, as you can come down the page, you'll see there's that image block. You can see that blue outline still. That block has not moved. It's actually the content or the image rather inside of that block that's moving. So not the whole block itself, so you know where you are on the page, but that block is going to stay there while the content is moving inside. So as you can see, as it scrolls in and it comes into the middle and it stops into its what we call original position.
It's original position.
Yeah.
So that's the location that you've put it using Squarespace, and so using their drag and drop functionality. So yeah, that place where you've placed it, that's its original position, where sort of no work is being done on that element at that point.
Yeah. So we have the start at point. So that's when your triangle is on the very far left, where before it comes in, it's going to be, where is this thing going to be starting from before it gets to the center to say 0. So that right now is on minus 50%. So that's going 50% to the left. If we wanted to go from the right, however, we can go plus 50% and we can drag it right to the top, or we can type it in as well.
Options.
Oh, we just there we go, 50 plus 50%.
That one winning.
Yes, 50 positive percentage. That's going to mean it's going to be 50 off to the right, and it's going to come into the center again there. So we can use that slider to be really creative and exciting to actually figure out where we want that thing to come in. Cool. So we flick that off as well. We can there's lots of, we can make that even go faster by choosing how far it is before it comes in. And that makes it kind of speed in quicker.
Sorry, I'd set you up on that one.
But
good to explain.
Yeah. Rowan's controlling the mouse, I'm controlling the words. So we're working together here. So let's try something else. Let's try the vertical motion. That's quite a fun one. So if you are familiar with parallax scrolling, which I think you are, most websites have parallax scrolling as a background image. But to have parallax scrolling as an individual block is really exciting, especially if there's a background image with a block that's moving different speed, and you have another block moving multiple different speeds. You can see now that blue line that we were on earlier, that's where the image was. And now you can see how the image is moving on the page as you're scrolling. And of course, that's moving at a starting position at 50 starting. So you can actually make, again, those things move quite drastic and do really small movements.
Sometimes a slower one. If you're going for parallax, it can be quite subtle to achieve that effect. It's often less work than you think.
Yeah. So there's some pretty cool stuff you can do there. So we got vertical motion and horizontal motion. So we turn that off. We go to another one to kind of isolate that. And let's go to rotate.
Rotate.
What a fun one. So 180 degrees. So doing snowboard tricks or skateboard tricks or wherever you want to do, doing 180s and 360s, you can do now with images and text and all sorts of stuff. But as you scroll down the screen, of course, you can see it flipping.
And so the thing to point out here again, that the center position, again, that's its original state. So when you're at the center, the little triangle is pointing at that center dot. That's where no work's being done. And that's why it's now at the correct orientation.
Yeah, so that's pretty fun. And obviously that's a 180, but you can do a 360, you can do a 720. I'm not sure how many other cool tricks, I used to do a lot of more aggressive, fun tricks on my snowboard. Don't do as much anymore, but that, those numbers there kind of come into play as far as you want to go. You can of course type it into whatever number you want and do some crazy stuff. Like you could do 1,000 and it will just spin a lot of times. I'm not sure how many 1,000 is by 360. Let's go. Oh, look at that. There's some fun stuff there.
You wanted the propeller animation, right?
Yes, the drone flying away image. That's what I want. Cool. So let's turn that off. And let's go to another one. What should we do next?
Opacity is really subtle. The thing I find interesting with this one is I just find it very similar to the, built-in Squarespace like entry effects. They have fade up, fade down, all those sort of things. I guess the real difference with this, because it's tethered to your scroll, when you're doing the entry effects, when you get to that point, it just loads in and that's it. You scroll back up, it's still there. You scroll back down, you don't get that effect again. So having it actually tethered to your mouse movements, it just makes it more interactive. They get to experience that over and over again if you've made something truly tantalizing on your website. Yeah,
no, that's very cool. I use probably when I'm using scrolling effects, no matter what effect I'm using, I almost always put the opacity on there as well, because it's a nice kind of fade in effect that's really cool to experience. Of course, you can have it start in at 0%, or you can choose to kind of have it kind of come in a bit more slower. So it starts at say 50 and then it kind of into 100%. Cool. Let's try scale next, because I think that's kind of a fun one. So scale, that's obviously getting bigger and smaller. So we can have something that's getting small and comes in at 50% to get to 100%, or we can have something really big.
Yeah, be careful with this one.
It can be really big and it comes down into 100%.
In situations like this, I mean, we'll get into combining things obviously, but something like opacity is actually going to make this much more palatable. Maybe even throwing in a that would have to go down to there. And now it just helps fade out, so you're not going to see it when it's that big. But yeah, that's why opacity can actually be really useful in some cases. So that's kind of, we got opacity and rotate. So if we turn off both of those, and we can do blur next. Now blurs, we had some fun conversations in the office about blurring, on how far can you blur things? We got very math nerd on that one. I think. The hardest bit was figuring out the largest thing you can put into blur, and then figuring out that in pixels, translating that to generally how many pixels would be in a kilometer, and then extrapolating that out through the universe to see how far we can blur faster. I think we got to Alpha Centauri, which is the closest star to Earth, and decided that was probably far enough.
There we go. That's what geeks get up to in our spare time. We figure out how far you can blur things. So blur is kind of a cool one. So if I think we're on opacity still, actually. So we go over to blur, and we turn on blur. So that's going to essentially, it's going to be blurred at 20%. And then it's going to come in and be full vision, which is going to be no blur, which is 0. And so that's pretty fun. So then you can obviously make a really extreme blur right to the end. It almost looks like it's disappearing, but it's actually being blurred again. This is what we talked about. It's being blurred so much, it's actually hard to see what's going on. And of course, you can even take that timeline to infinity and beyond, but it will just come back to where it should be, which is in the middle. Obviously, that was super fast.
That's too fast.
Too fast. You almost didn't know what was going on. It just showed up instantly. Cool. So that's the entrance. Now we kind of explain all those different effects and how you can enter them. The other part of this coin is now if something is faded in, or it's rotated in, or it's slid in rather, you can also have an exit. So maybe it's come in and it leaves again. So another fun one to do is if it's coming in from the left, or sorry, from the right, that's good. And then we want to continue to scroll out past that. So rather than stop, we want to have it exit as well. So if we turn on the exit animation and we flick on horizontal, it's going to come in now. This is going to be a fun effect because it's going to bounce in and bounce back out again.
We'll go for the bounce.
We'll go for the bounce. So it's going to bounce in and then bounce back out again. That's because we have start at 100%, which is off the screen. And then it's going to slide into the center. And once it gets to the center, it's going to choose, where am I going to go next? I'm going to head to 50% the other side. But we can do 50% or even 100% on the other side of the screen. So now it just slides in. It doesn't stop. It keeps going. So that's kind of how those really simple animations happen. You can have animations come in and animations go out. So we can try flicking on something else. So let's do a
sorry,
you're gonna go into it.
I'm making it up here.
Scaling in and scrolling past. Yeah, we can combine some images there. We can maybe even chuck an opacity on there. Maybe it fades in even or fades out.
There we go, that one.
There you go. So it kind of scales in and fades in and comes in, and then once it gets there, it just slides off gracefully. So you can do a whole bunch of stuff by combining effects. I'm just gonna let Rowan go nuts here, and he's just gonna throw a whole bunch of cool effects in there while I continue to talk about it. So the really exciting thing is that if you've got something in your mind that you want to create, I want something to slide in or to scale in, rotate in, and then once it gets there, I want to just do something different on the way out. Maybe it parallaxes in really fast and fades, but then it stays in there and slowly shrinks away. So there's some really cool things that you can do with that. But one of the limitations with the simple effect is once it comes in, it continues to leave with the power that you've assigned it to. So the really cool and unique thing, if you wanted to kind of say delay or scroll in and pause for 50% of your scrolling capacity and then exit, that's when you're going to actually need your custom timeline. So we'll switch over to there now as we're showing some cool stuff that Rowan's doing.
That's enough.
Yeah.
We'll clear this one fun tip. I mean, anything you do there, if you come back one level and you come to this and you click clear there, that will do everything throughout that tool. So if you do want to get back to where you started and have a nice clean canvas to work with, this is a great way to go. So I'm going to do that. And that way we can start fresh with a custom timeline.
Cool. So now we can see our timeline is set up. So we have the timeline is at 0% when it's starting. That's when the object is coming into the screen. And then when it gets to 40%, it's going to stop the power of whatever you've assigned and pause. Imagine it kind of pause whatever you assign it to, the end of that point. When it gets to 60, it's going to do your exit transition. It's going to go from 60% right to the end until the block leaves the, kind of the center point of that screen. So if we just keep that timeline there and we just put on a, maybe that horizontal again, that was cool. So we've got something that's kind of coming in and it's going to come in and then pause when it gets to 40%. And then it's going to stop to 60. And then it's going to carry on out. Now, if we scroll down, no pun intended, to see the different entry and center and exit paths that's coming in, we'll be able to line those up with our timeline and see really clearly what's going on. So we're saying at 0%, it's going to start at minus 25 degrees or position off the screen. Then when it gets to the center, that's that kind of dead zone, that 40 to 60%, what's going to happen to it? It's going to be at 0. But of course, we can change that value to be somewhere else entirely. So it's going to start from negative 25, then go to 0. And then when it gets to 60%, it's going to go from 60% to 100%. It's going to end up at 25% off the screen. So that's how that kind of custom timeline works. So you can change those powers, change the position of where it's going to exit, where it's going to enter. And of course, where's the center point that you want to be stuck and paused on? No longer does it have to be the center of the screen or the center of the block. You can actually choose the power of where you want that horizontal scrolling to stop. So if we flicked on maybe something else like opacity, let's try opacity. Yeah, the one that kind of looks like the Death Star. Yeah, cool.
It is the 4th of May. That's
it
true.
It is May the 4th be with you, Ron.
All
right. So since we're looking at Death Stars, we're looking at opacity. So we have it's going to come in at 0%, and it's going to fade in until we get to that 40%, and then it's going to be at 100% opacity, or not opacity, viewable. And then when it gets to 60%, it's going to start fading away out to that point there. So we can actually change that. We can change, we actually want it to kind of not fade in all the way, but maybe fade until about 40, 80, something like that, something else. And so it will actually pause at 60%. And maybe at the very end, you actually want to fade out at 100% rather than fade away. So we can change the exit now to 100%. And so it's going to fade in mostly, get to 60, and then it's going to continue its power by fading up to 100%. So I'm obviously stating a point here. There's some really interesting things you can do because every single animation now will have the shared timeline, but different entry, center, and exit animation effects, which is really powerful. You can pretty much do just about anything you dream of. The next exciting thing about this is you don't have to stick to this specific timeline. You can change the timeline. So Rowan's going to maybe bring in maybe the starting position. We don't want to maybe say when that block is at 0%, we want to be about there. So we'll slide.
And
that.
So just point out one of the things I'm doing. I mean, I'm using this little arrow to actually know where I am. So I'm getting to the point of the screen that I know I want the animation to start at. And I'm like, maybe I want it to start here.
That's good.
And now I can just pull this in to where that arrow currently is, because that represents where we currently are.
And now you know where that power is. So it's going to be essentially roughly, it's still at 0. Anything between 0% and 12% is going to be at 0. And now when it gets to that green ticker at 12%, it's going to start the animation process all the way to 40. And that's where that animation is going to take place. And then of course, pause, we can change the length of that pause. We can bring that 40% down to 20% maybe.
And again, like I come to here and it's like, I want it to be the entry animation to be completely finished at this point. So I'm going to drag this part just on the other side of where I currently am. And then I know, wow, or just I actually visibly see in real time the animation has stopped. So that's how I know that's the space to come in.
Yeah, so then there's that dead zone there. And then of course you can bring it right up to 60% and you can make it pause for longer. Maybe I don't want to fade out yet. Maybe I want to hold on a bit longer so you can carry on and let that dead zone last a bit longer. And maybe you want to, finish the transition. You can bring up, you're 100% in as well. So you can actually have it go in from fading out really quickly. So it gets to 90%, and before it even leaves the screen, it's gone.
Part of the interesting things, I mean, because we've shortened the amount of time that it has to complete the things that we've asked it to do. So, you know, we've asked it to go, please fully fade in so it's fully visible, and we've asked to move it 100% of itself off the screen. So it just means it has a much shorter time frame to complete that. So that's why it just looks like it's going a little bit faster.
The other cool thing with this is can we just go back to our default starting timeline run?
All right. Again, easiest way. Yay.
Let's do that. Let's go to our custom timeline again. Cool. The fun thing is, if you wanted to maybe keep this 0 and 100, but you want to maybe join that centerpiece again, but you want to bring those 2 yellow dots closer together, you can actually do this cool thing. Watch this. Keep going, boof, and it merges together. That was a lot of fun to make, wasn't it, Ron?
Yes, this slider was a project of passion, definitely.
Yeah. So now we have this middle slider that actually is both the kind of the end of the entrance and the start of the exit merged together, and you can just move that wherever you want. So you can come in to really, really fast at say 20%, and then once it gets 20%, it slowly does its exit position. So you can change that center. And of course, when you've merged those together, it kind of obviously sticks together. And what if you want to break it apart, Ron?
So, I mean, there are actually 2 ways. There is the pros, who can just double click and it's going to go pop. I think of it like a balloon. I'm just sort of popping it with a little pin and then it's going to come out again. Or we move them together. There's also this yellow dot, which I feel like represents the dot that we've lost by merging them. So if you want the other dot back, you click that and that will pop out for you.
Yeah. So, so that's our kind of really, really exciting scrolling effects timeline, and something that we've been looking at wanting to do since we started SquareKicker is, what if someday we get to be able to make this cool idea? And it's super surreal to be sitting here in a webinar with you guys today showing this amazing feature. So we hope that you guys get a chance to play with it. We've definitely had some fun making it. There's a lot of math equations going on.
There was some good algebra. Yeah. I mean, but this is actually really exciting. I mean, you know, putting in all that hard work and doing all this really strange sort of mathematics to make all this happen, and just have all of these options under the sun available for the creative designers out there. I don't think we have much of an idea what people will actually make with this. We have some ideas ourselves, but the excitement is just throwing it out to the community and seeing what it turns into.
So please let us know what you make with this thing, because we would love to kind of see it, but also maybe we can kind of even share it with other people to see what else people can make. So some really exciting things to come with scrolling effects. And so, yeah, we hope you enjoy it. Cool. So that kind of concludes our scrolling effects tutorial. What if we head over to Sticky? You want to keep going?
Am I not allowed to keep playing?
Keep playing. It's pretty fun.
Okay.
I had a lot of fun playing to make that little tutorial video that we showed off. It was pretty exciting and cool. All right, so let's head over to our next section, which is Sticky. Now, Sticky is something that I think a lot of people think we understand until we start playing with it, and it seems to never work until it does, and then it works awesome.
I'd say it's simple but fickle.
Yeah, and if we're going to release some secret sauce here, it is 2 lines of CSS, guys. Like, if you know CSS, it's 2 lines: position sticky and then where it's sticky. So this is really simple to code, but really confusing to implement. And I think that's why SquareKicker comes with this power pack of, it's really easy to figure out, test, trial, maneuver, and see things without having to sit there and get a code editor out and try to figure out what's going on, and really easy to target something, because otherwise you have to figure out exactly what you want to target, where you want to target. And we're just going to explain what Sticky is.
Yeah. I mean, one point, as Nick has said, you know, the whole visual builder thing. I mean, you just saw scroll effects, you know, you can read, you can watch tutorials, but you can also just come and have a play, and you're going to figure it out, I think, quite fast once you start playing with the sliders in real time. I mean, Nick and I are both sort of visual, learn by do kinds of people. So I feel like we've made a product that kind of represents how we learn.
Yeah.
And we hope that works for other people too.
Definitely. So we just want to explain what Sticky is a little bit, just the technical-ness behind Sticky, and then we can show you how SquareKicker uses Sticky in that place. So Sticky is when something becomes stuck to a screen. I know that sounds silly, but it says, I want this thing to stay in a specific place and at a specific, stay sticky while it's scrolling. It stays at a place until the rest of its parent children are finished scrolling. Now, that's confusing if you don't understand HTML. So a parent is essentially a wrapper. Imagine a big wrapper. Now, everything inside that wrapper is a child. And now all those child are siblings. So if you make something sticky that is a child, it will wait for the rest of its family, the rest of its children below it to finish carrying on. And then it will say, hey, my family has left. I will go on with the rest of my family and my parents and scroll away. So in the simplest form, that's what's happening. And so if we use that method on a section, so we open up the section tools, we go to advanced, and we open up our sticky section. That one there. Now we're going to choose here. This is going to say, this is going to become sticky. And then we have a choice here. Where do we want it to become sticky? And if we choose the most simplest place, the top, it's going to say, it's going to come sticky where on the top. And it's going to say 0 vertical viewport height, which is the top of your screen width. And you can obviously change various places from the top where you want to be sticky. So we'll stick with 0. And as you scroll up, you can see click, it's become sticky.
It's stuck.
It's stuck. And you can say, well, how long does it stay sticky? Well, it stays sticky until its children in the same family come with it. Where is this currently sitting? It's sitting in the main body because this section is with a bunch of other sections. All those other sections are children in the same family. But if you scroll back up, of course, it doesn't stay sticky until it reaches the top, but its family below it continues to scroll. This is where you can do some really interesting things as well, as obviously that next section by default comes in front of it.
So, I mean, just real quick. No, real quick. Just because all the sections are siblings, there's also the order that they are. So
yes,
something that comes later in HTML will always be by default on top.
That's right. So, but if we wanted to not be on top, we actually want our sticky section to be in front. Let's say you have a navigation bar that you want to say sticky at the top or something. Head into your design tabs, go to layout, and then you can change layer or the Z index encode, which is anything higher than 0, because that's the default for all of them are 0. But we just crank it up to a bit higher because I think it's just going to be needed for later on, because I've actually put some interesting things on this website, make specifically the bottom. So then we can see that section there is sticky, but the next section underneath it isn't coming on top. It's actually coming underneath it now. And that's because we brought that sticky section. So you can kind of see why that stays sticky. But if you got a footer, which this is not a footer, by the way, I've actually hidden the footer on this site. This is just another section below it. So you can actually bring the next section down, which is that drawing room section. And let's go apply to that run and go to that drawing room and go to that layer. And we're going to go into the layer tool, and then we're going to change the layer to something higher than the one above it, two. So now you can see the second child or the sibling, this brother or sister, underneath sticky went underneath it, but you can change the layering, but this next sibling down is to be on top. So you can have a lot of fun playing with sticky, putting layers in front and behind and below, and just kind of changing the order of something with sticky. So that's sticky sections. And like we said, like to code this is actually quite complex to think about what's going on, but you can just play with these kind of concepts with sticky. So if we kind of clear out those layers there, we'll try something else as well. And let's do another one, which is going to be sticky bottom, which has a little bit of a different effect to it.
It's probably something you'd use less, but it does have its own unique properties, definitely.
Yeah, so we head up to sticky, and now we're going to say it's going to be sticky, and we ask ourselves, where do we want it to be sticky? We're going to say the bottom. And now it's going to be the bottom. It's going to say 0% from the bottom. So now it's kind of flipped. The order has flipped. It's saying everything above it is going to be holding on until it finishes scrolling. And when it finishes, its parents or siblings that are in front of them, then it will lift off once they kind of get left behind. So the sticky is going to become sticky bottom, and until it reaches the last section, and then it will lift off again. So if we scroll, and once it gets to the bottom of that section, it's going to lift off and, of course, carry on. So it's kind of the reverse order. The fun thing with that slider now, we have the 0%, or 0 vertical height, viewport height rather. You can change, I don't want it to be 0. You can change it to something different. So below the section line or above the section line, and you can even make something sticky right in the middle of the screen, which is really strange when you have something that's sticky in the middle. That's actually interesting because it's actually the bottom of the section is sticky to the middle, but it looks like it's something sticky to the top still. But you can kind of see what's going on there. So if you have some like creativity, we've played in the office with something that sections are stacking, but you can still see them poking out. So the section at the top is sticking and the next one comes up just below it. And they're just 20 pixels or, a couple of vertical viewport heights rather, just stacked in layers. And that becomes kind of like a card that stacks, but then you can see the index that you can go and back up to. So it's just layers and layers and layers of sticky. We'll stop there because I think we can keep going with that, but we got some other things to talk about with sticky. And one of them though, we're gonna switch over to here. Do you want to show that, Ron? That's kind of fun. So this is actually not sticky split, but it's a split section. And one of the sections on that split screen is sticky. So that's when I say sticky and half of the section stays sticky. So if you had two sections side by side, it would look like it's sticky split, which we'll go into in a second, but it's actually just a little bit of a different animation that's going on there.
Just to show how weird things can be.
They can be very weird.
But, when done gracefully, it's just called creativity.
Absolutely, absolutely. Cool. So if we just maybe apply sticky split now,
all right.
Let's turn that off. And so sticky split. So we talked about this as its parent. So one of the things that sticky split does, it takes that parent and changes those parents. So rather than being the body, we're going to wrap multiple sections together with some JavaScript. And we're going to say, actually, rather than sharing the parent of the whole body, we're going to say, let's just take a family and cut it up into a small little family, a subfamily, if you will. And we're going to have 3 children in this family only. So right now we have the section that's sticky, and we have 2 children or sections included in this. There's going to be 2 other children in this family. So in this family together, we've got 3 members, and we can actually make that family bigger, saying, 10 or 12. That's how sticky split works. So it's saying that the section on the left will stay sticky, and it's going to continue to stay sticky until its family has finished scrolling. And that's how many more children are to come? Well, we've got 2 in that family are going to carry on scrolling, and then it's going to, of course, lift off. And that's why you see that really cool effect. And you, of course, can change the width of that sticky to say, rather than 50%, you can make it smaller or wider. You can choose the left or the right, which is depending on where you want the sticky to stick. So just some cool, fun use cases there on sticky split. And there's a lot of cool, interesting things going on there. But with a few sliders, you can make a huge impact. And it's probably one of our favorite tools that we've released. Just is so easy to make sticky, just really impactful. And the cool thing with sticky is that it takes that sticky position thing and it always puts it on the top on mobile. So we actually take sticky off altogether, because the use cases of having sticky split on a mobile, very, very not very nil.
You'd want a very wide phone.
Very wide phone. Yes, maybe the foldable iPhone that opens up 3 ways or something like that.
Yeah, no good.
Yeah,
the future. I guess you can prep for the future.
Yeah, we'll prep for the future someday. Cool. So that's sticky split. So that's a really quick and easy tool. That's pretty easy. The last thing we'll talk about is a sticky block, and it's probably the hardest one to figure out. But since we've gotten this far to talk about what sticky is, we'll go to sticky block. So we'll open up that to full width again, and we got sticky split going still. Maybe we just need a bit of a refresh here. Here we go. So we apply that, and I've put a little block in the middle here. So we got a text that says sticky, and we're going to make this guy sticky. So the first thing we're going to do is go head to here, go to your advanced tools, and go to sticky block. And then we're going to make the sticky to the top, and where's sticky to the top? In the middle. Now, right away, people say, this isn't working at all. It's not sticky.
Quite underwhelming.
It's not sticky at all. Like we said it was going to be sticky in the middle of the screen, and of course it's not. Now, here's an example to show why is it sticky. And Rowan has some cool things to show. Essentially, we're looking at the parents, right? So when its family finishes scrolling again, then it will become unsticky. But right now, this sticky text has no children, has no brothers and sisters, and we want to show you why. So there's a bit of CSS here. That shows this. I'm not sure if you can see this very well, but we can see all the columns, and we can see the rows and the text. And right now we see the text block, and we see outside of its parent, we see that little blue line. That's the wrapper. That's the parent that it's currently in. And of course, he's pretty lonely. He doesn't have any brothers and sisters. So what we're going to do now is we're going to give him some family to go with. So we're going to give him a spacer block. That's the easiest one to kind of just show up. We've even put some blue lines in the menu bar.
This is fabulous.
Yeah, let's put a spacer block in there. So on the left.
Where's spacer hiding? There we go.
Yeah, that ugly spacer guy. So we'll just drag him down And now he's got some family members above to kind of play with. But also, if we scroll up and down, let's see what happens there. Well, he's not sticky to the top, of course, because we're looking at what's below him. So let's also put a spacer block below him, and that's going to make the biggest impact. So now when we stretch that out pretty far, we can already see it's becoming sticky.
Hey.
And we can even grab multiple space blocks if we really want to. We just need lots of children. So now that he's got a, you know, very, very big brother below him.
Mm-hmm.
And as he's going to stay sticky until his brother finishes scrolling and does his thing. And then watch what happens when that gets to the bottom, it lifts off, and then you can see him carry on. So that's, you can't really see that, what's going on behind the scenes, but if you're working with Squarespace enough, you understand that there is some columns and some rows on a grid of 12 behind the scenes that's structuring your content. And this is what's happening. So this is kind of how sticky blocks work. So if you want to make something specifically sticky on that block, on that page, make sure you have something below it if you want to be sticky to the top, or make sure you have something above it if you want to be sticky to the bottom, because of course that's where it's going to become sticky, and it will lift off and stay sticky when its brother comes and then carry on again. So sticky blocks are a little bit confusing to understand, but I think if you just continue to play with it, putting things above and below it, and if it's not sticky, it's because it doesn't have any siblings to scroll with.
It needs a family.
It needs a family.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, one bit that's different. I mean, the sticky section one, you'll see has more or less the exact same interface. The only thing we do differently with the block is we just default it to 50% view height, which means that the block, it's moving when it's at the center of the screen. If we made this the same kind of default effect that we have on the section one, then that's the sticky top that you probably saw before.
Yeah, definitely. So we just want to address just a couple things, and it's something that we hear a lot from everyone. It's the common mistakes with sticky. We kind of already done one of them, which is, you know, not having a block with children or siblings rather. And it actually has to do with custom code. Mm-hmm. And it's something we deal with a lot. We're not completely opposed to custom code, because we use custom code, because we've made custom code for websites, and we give custom code to you. So we essentially are creating custom code, but it's when other people are obviously using custom code that, you know, for fair enough reasons, we don't really understand what it means. We just know what it does. Mm-hmm. And so one of those things is overflow. And what happens when you use sticky is it actually needs to know where it becomes sticky. And if you put any overflow value, and overflow is basically a hidden value of what is it, visible or hidden. And if you put an overflow hidden on any parent that is outside of the sticky parent, it will actually break sticky. And what that means is that if we just actually open up our CSS editor, we're going to copy that there. So we're going to get the block of that there. If we just going to go up to, let's just go to something really easy like the body, because I think that's the common one. People often use overflow hidden because on mobile, sometimes if you push something outside of your screen, you get this kind of weird kind of white overspace that you can scroll left and right on. And so what we tend to do is like, oh, we need to fix that. We should put overflow none on the body, because that of course fixes that. And it does, but actually what it does is it's killing kind of everything on the screen, everything that body to become the option to become to overflow. And so probably the necessary thing to use overflow is to figure out what exactly is flowing outside the body, and find that and go to its direct parent, and then make that not overflow, not the entire body, which takes a little bit more work. We're not going to lie. It's actually a bit more of a time-consuming thing. So for the moment, there's a good option there. If we take, should we just use a section maybe? Is that an easier example to talk about, as a section isn't sticky because the overflow is on there?
Yeah, sorry, I jumped the gun there, but yes.
No, we're just playing.
Yeah, that is what I just did. The quirk is when putting overflow none on the body, that is actually the one place where it is allowed to be, the one and only place. One of the part that's hard is that Safari and mobile browsers do operate differently, and they don't necessarily honor that in the same way. And putting it on your HTML or body, I believe on those do break sticky with Safari browsers and with mobile browsers. So that's both Android and iOS. There's a bit of nuance, I guess, when it comes to different browsers and where you can and can't put the overflow rules. I mean, my main thing with solving overflow is putting it on the body. It is great. I mean, it works. That's a really easy way to get there. I'm more a fan of you're trying to find, I guess, ask yourself, why is it doing this? Squarespace out of the box doesn't have any, overflow issues. So if it does, I think the first question is why, and try and solve that problem, I guess, closer to where that problem is, rather than just sort of putting just a big band-aid around your whole head, just in case.
Yeah. So a lot of kind of people who open up Squarespace websites, we've heard of, the first thing I do before I open up any Squarespace website, I go to my custom CSS, I go to my body, and I put overflow hidden on every website before I get started. And is that the right thing to do?
It's one way to do it, but yeah, I would look closer I would ask myself, why is it doing this? And that would always be my first question.
Yeah. So anytime we're using overflow and it's on the kind of a higher up parent, if you will, it's actually going to end up breaking sticky, because sticky needs to know where to be stuck. And if it's hidden, it will just continue to scroll. So often when sticky split's not working, sticky section, it's probably because there's an overflow X or an overflow hidden somewhere on the body. So we've actually made that section there. We're looking at the whole section.
The point being, when you put overflow none on the section that has sticky inside it, that will break sticky. And that's because overflow is on a ancestor or a parent or above the parent, somewhere on the tree to the top of the DOM, top of the page, sorry. So it's just, anything if you put overflow none on something that has sticky inside it, it will make sticky stop working. It's probably the short answer.
Yeah, and this is something that we're actually continuing to work with, because with your using block position tools with SquareKicker, it's really easy to make something and push it outside of the element of the screen width. And so what we're doing is we're mitigating a little bit of these issues by actually adding an overflow value where it needs to be added on that specific page. And so when you're using sticky, we've actually made sticky be the primary caregiver, if you will, the one who's going to rule them all. So if you're using sticky and position overflow, we put overflow protection on those sites so they don't over scroll. But if you're using sticky, that dominates. And we say, no, actually we want sticky to work more than the overflow. So it's actually, if there's something that is outside of the screen width and sticky is on it and you use the position tools, you might get this kind of like mobile overflow scrolling issue. And of course, when we try putting overflow in the body, that breaks sticky, but it fixes
Safari,
on Safari. Yes, there's a whole bunch of nuances. So we're collecting a lot of information from you guys. So continue to send them in. If you're having this issue, we'd love to hear about it, because we're continuing to work around how we can solve this problem. So you can use sticky and position tools and have all those overflow protections on Safari, on mobile, on all the devices and all the browsers. So that's what we're working with right now. But those are just some tips and tricks on how to use sticky and some common mistakes, if you will, going forward. Cool. So without any further ado, we want to get into some more tips and tricks as we kind of wrapping up this, and then we'll get into some Q&As. I know we've kind of gone a bit over, but if you guys are happy just to keep listening to us, we'll get into our Q&A soon as well.
We can always talk.
We can always talk.
Yeah.
So the next thing here, we just have a poll here, and is how have you found the following SquareKicker features challenging? So the uninstalling, the designer dashboard workflow, or the device toggle. It looks like we have about 30 and 30% for the device and uninstalling, and 40% for the dashboard workflow. So that's interesting. It's almost an even split there. So we might just kind of brush through all of them. But if we want to go into it, we're going to just show you a couple tips and tricks here on how to uninstall first, and then we'll do our little device toggle, and then we'll finish, of course, with the designer dashboard workflow. And I think that will actually help a lot of people who are on designer plans and understanding, how do I make websites, remove websites, what happens to my website, how do I reactivate my website, how do you transfer websites, so all those kind of things we'll get to after this. So the first and easiest one is the uninstall process. So to uninstall SquareKicker, that's if you want to actually remove SquareKicker in its entirety. So the installation script and all the generated code, you would go straight up to the account area, and you'll see this link called uninstall. Now, I've already done this, but what you will also want to do is you want to head into your dashboard, because when you uninstall it, you might want to reinstall it again. But this is a good way of just kind of seeing, is there a bug? Is there something else going on? Is it Squarespace? Is it my custom code? I'm not sure. So SquareKicker has this uninstall process here. And when you click on uninstall, it's going to ask you and say, it's going to remove your installation script and your generated code. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes, I am. And as we uninstall it, there's no fear and no harm, because all your code is backed up. And because the JavaScript is on the page still, we're just going to reload this page. So we bring everything back to what it was before SquareKicker,
which hopefully won't look as good.
No, so we have a logo that I've hidden here. This looks all funny because I actually had it very uniquely crafted to the site. Nothing is moving here. It's looking like a very different website now. We even have space between these two image blocks. All this stuff here looks vastly different. And as we go to the bottom, this looks incredibly different as well. And these big things obviously looking very different. And as we go down the screen, of course, there's no sticky, there's no nothing going on. And so this is a Squarespace vanilla site without any custom code in it whatsoever. But now if I want to reinstall SquareKicker, all I would have to do is head into my dashboard, find my area and go get my installation script. And as you head into here, it's going to give me my installation script, which I can copy. I can go straight to open configuration, which I'll do now. Cool. And I'm just going to paste this guy back in here in the header. We've actually recently just moved this into the header just to help some load speeds and times on the thing. So if you used to put it in the footer, no fear. We know you've done that. And we've just automatically pushed this back up to the header. So no harm is done. Right now I've pasted it in there and SquareKicker is up and running. So I'm just gonna close this because I have it on my other screen over here. And let's just refresh this guy now and watch it all just kind of reappear in its normal position. So we have the scrolling effects coming again. Everything is back to normal. So if you're ever worried about custom code and losing your custom code, we've got you covered. We backed everything up. So if you just want to take something out, put it back in again, that's as easy as it is that really.
I mean, I guess the clarification is, yeah, when you uninstall, that's purely just talking about removing it from the Squarespace website. That itself has nothing to do with our servers. Everything there is still saved. That's not a delete button. It's not a wipe. It's not a factory reset. That's just a please take this out of my Squarespace website for now.
Yeah, you can always put it back in, obviously really quick and easy as well. And all your code is never lost and it's backed up. The last thing as well is to look at the device toggle. So there are a couple cool things with a device toggle. And this often gets misinterpreted because when you're using the most common thing you want to do with the device toggle is when people do something to it, they will maybe use the block position tool and they will of course move the position to go somewhere over here because this is looking, I want to be there as well. But then everything I do on that all devices will be affected for all the devices. But if I head to laptop, anything I do to that device is obviously still affected. But if I do something now to this and go back to say 0, now everything on my desktop was set to here, this image here, but on laptop and smaller, I'm gonna find the image again, it keeps moving around. It's gonna be where it should be because it's at 0%, and tablet will be where it should be, and mobile will be where it should be. So it's actually flowing down to smaller devices. You can see that kind of outline there, and that means it's anything smaller. Now, here's the fun thing. If I didn't do that, and if I put that kind of, let's just go back up here, and let's just clear that. Where's my image there? Cool. And if I head into layout and I go into position tool again, and if I go to mobile, this is the often what happens here is trying to figure out where has my image gone? What is, oh, there it is, it's over there. I actually don't want it there anymore. And you can just bring it right back to the middle again. Rather than hitting the reset here, you can just go right back to here. And then now it will be fine on desktop. And then mobile, it will be back to where it was as well.
And now what happens if you press the reset button while you're on mobile?
And I believe sometimes it won't do anything here, but often what happens if we're back to here, this is sometimes where it actually messes up and actually clears my settings to the desktop. But sometimes we go to mobile and we say, oh, I want to clear one of these or clear one of those. And often what happens, it actually clears it on both mobile and desktop right up. So I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I didn't want to clear my settings. I just want to go and change my mobile ones. So this is a good option for sticky split as well. If you're using sticky split, not sticky split rather, sticky sections. And if you make a whole section 50-50, such as this one here, and you go to layout and do 50%. If you go to mobile, it will of course be 50 and you have to go back up on mobile. And now on desktop, you have it to be full width or half width rather, and then on mobile, it's back to full width. And so you can kind of negotiate what you want to have for each different screen size going all the way up. So cool. So that's kind of using the device toggle. The next one is the dashboard management for designers. So if I'm just gonna let's just refresh this website here. Not find, refresh. And that's ready to go. It's all happening. So a lot of the question will be is, all right, so I have a designer plan. I've used up all my spaces and I actually want to kind of move this onto my client, or they don't need it anymore. I want to free myself up so I can have more. So to do that, next to your website on your designer plan, you can click on it and just hit remove. What remove does is it doesn't actually take off SquareKicker. It just takes it out of your designer plan and backlogs it into your non-active list. So it looks like it's just disappeared, like it's been deleted. It hasn't been deleted. In fact, if we head to subscriptions, you see your list here of active websites and inactive websites. So that's my inactive website. Now, if I head back to here and I refresh my page, see what experience is like when it's in the deactivated mode, it's the same thing as it would be on a cancel plan. So it's checking, it's valuing my subscriptions, and it's still working.
Congratulations.
A free plan forever.
The suspense.
It's still working, and it's probably because actually I wonder if I have it on another plan as well, because I've actually moved it over just before this because it was on 2 different plans. So it very well could be on 2 different plans. But what will happen is we'll actually just disable SquareKicker. So we'll just say that you're actually on a plan that needs to be upgraded or moved on. And then to put that back in, it's as simple as heading into your dashboard. And instead of connecting a new website, actually want to.
It's not new.
It's not new. It's existing. So you want to restore inactive websites. So hit inactive, find the website you want. You might have a long list. You might want to search from if you have 20 or 30 websites, and hit restore inactive, and it adds it back to your plan. Now, when you do that, it's actually going to add a number here of monthly activations. Now, this means that not only do you get 10 websites, and I have 5 in use right now, you get to connect 10 different websites to your designer plan a month. And an agency is 25. And so what this means is now I just connected an inactive website. That's a log for this month. But if I wanted to connect a new one, that will also add another log as well. So each time you add something new to this designer plan, that acts as your monthly activations, and it resets when your month is finished. So essentially, if you're making more than 10 websites a month, which if you are, you're probably killing it, and maybe you have a team of people, you should be on an agency plan, which allows you to have 25. And of course, if you run out of 25, you must be absolutely smashing it. And we can make a custom plan for you as well to do that. So the next step is, let's say I've made a designer plan, or I've chosen to move away from my pro and I have a couple of free trials, and I add a designer plan, gone into a subscription, and I've gone in here and I said, add a designer plan or an agency. And now I want to add this plan here, or this website, to my designer plan. So to do that, rather than going to new website and connecting the same website, you head over to your pro subscription and you do transfer. And you find your designer plan and you can transfer it in. That cancels your plan automatically and then moves that website now into your designer plan. You can, of course, do that to a free trial that's expired, and you can do that to existing free trial, and you can move all your websites into your designer plan. So you have one plan with all your websites for your designer plan. And now you can see here, this monthly activation has gone up to 6 now instead of 3 because I've connected them. So this is how a dashboard designer management flow looks like. And so hope that answers a lot of your questions. But now, speaking of questions, I would love to get to some questions, and we'll welcome Hannah back.
Oh, we're a team now.
Hi,
We're a team.
Nice to be back here. It's been fun chatting with you on chat time, but we'll jump into some live. So the first and most important question that we want to get started with is one from Caitlin, and it says, these are all great questions, but the real one is, where'd you all get that baby or Yoda cross stitch behind you?
Oh, good.
Rowan, I think you better take this one.
This is, I'd call it a birthday present from my wife, and it's her fabulous handiwork. So that's cross-stitched. Yeah, I know it. I know what she does. All I know is it looks really hard and confusing. And she says my code looks confusing, and I say this looks really confusing. So very impressive. But thank you. I believe it was a pattern she brought from Etsy.
There we go. Great question, Caitlin.
Especially very applicable today on May the 4th.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So we've got quite a few questions in the chat. Thanks for sending those all through. If we don't get to them during the live chat, we will send you guys an email and answer your questions individually. So the first question came in from Evelyn. It says, if we have the Squarespace animations turned on, like fade in, will those still work in addition to the extra scroll effects with SquareKicker, or should we turn off the Squarespace animations?
Good question. I mean, there's do I have to and there's should I. I don't think you have to, but I'd probably say maybe you should. If you want to be, I mean, our tool, I guess it's about, you know, taking back control is maybe a little bit of what we do. So if you want to be in full of those animations, turning those off will allow you to be in full control of what's going on.
And Squarespace's animations is actually applying to the entire block. So it's actually an animation that's doing something on the block level. The scrolling effects is actually changing the elements inside the block, or the elements inside. So the text or the content wrappers inside. So when Squarespace reaches a certain trigger point, it does that animation and it displays the animation in a certain place. Scrolling will actually change the content inside of that block. So it's slightly different effects. It probably won't break anything, but again, it might look strange and unattended.
And again, the Squarespace effects happen only once on the first time they come into view. So it actually means that very first interaction will be different to every other interaction if they choose to go back up and down the page again. So to make it consistent, I'd say go all in on SquareKicker, which obviously is what I would say.
Good question there.
Cool. And this one probably ties in a little bit with those scrolling effects and everything you guys have been talking about today. But Shirley's asked, what happens on mobile with all the awesomeness, or should these be turned off on mobile?
Yeah, so great question. I mean, there is very much the option to turn them off on mobile. Again, this is do I have to versus should I? You don't have to, but should you? I mean, that's probably comes down to the designer, and if you think it's appropriate on that device size with that particular element, or if you just want to make it a little bit simpler, you can. To disable it, you do use the device toggle. So you can go down to mobile, and then you can actually choose the animation effect, and you can disable it there.
Should we just open it up really quickly since we're looking at it?
Sounds great.
So we head into here and SquareKicker Advanced. We obviously have some scrolling effects on this guy here. So we can just go into mobile, and we can see that this is actually still a working motion here. Actually hard to see on this one. Anyway, so you can actually get into your device here and just flick it off, and you can see here at the moment this is off for mobile, but if you go back up to desktop, it comes back on again.
And so that's job done. I mean, one of the really amazing things as well is that every slider there, you can have different for every device size. So you can actually adjust the timeline when you go down to a smaller screen. So if you have to disable it because it's not operating correctly, then you can adjust how it operates on that device size. You can change the center point, you can change the start and stop value, the timeline, you can have a different timeline for all 4 different device sizes, which in all honesty probably gets quite overwhelming, but it's just the fact that you can is what I want to get across.
So it doesn't change that desktop at all, but I've go into mobile, and as Rowan said, this is actually a very different experience now because I've changed it on just on
and if
mobile.
You move the timeline, even if you break it out, I mean, you can make a dead zone just for mobile, and then when we go back up to desktop, you'll see that timeline's actually going to go back. Oh, that's going really well. Good news.
Bug time.
Good. Next question.
Awesome. So Nicolette has asked, when blocks are entering and exiting, so with those scrolling effects, will they be likely to alert Google to send out those warnings about the content wider than screen?
We've done some research on this, haven't we?
Yeah, well, I mean, first and foremost, these animations are being done with JavaScript, and I do believe that when Google is crawling websites, they're not firing that in the same way. So I would heavily doubt it. We have also had questions around Google's CLS ratings, which is the cumulative layout shift. In short, that's if you add elements or remove elements from the page on the fly after the page is finished loading, it means other elements can jockey around because they all kind of are leaning up against each other. You add a button here, content moves down, you remove a button, content moves up. And that's the CLS, or that's bad CLS, effectively. Because we're actually moving, as Nick's described a few times, the elements inside where the element is, we are never popping that out of its family effectively. Like it's always retaining its original space, and it's the stuff inside that which is actually moving around and making that movement. So it's not causing any unjustified CLS.
Which would be the same exact thing for Squarespace animations. That's not causing any CLS as well. And they have animations where things are coming in and out and scrolling, but that doesn't seem to cause it as well for the same reason.
Oh, thanks, guys. So switching gears a little bit, Johnny's asked, when duplicating a Squarespace site, it seems to strip out the SquareKicker code. Is there a way to copy that over? It's obviously a really common question. So it'd be great if you guys could answer that one.
I'm happy to talk about the technical reasons why that doesn't happen, and maybe you can talk about
the business cases as well.
Yeah.
So we'll just say that is the expected consequence. So Squarespace, I mean, I'm probably getting into technical as well. Squarespace actually uses a block. We actually use a block ID. Every single block has a unique identifier. Every single section has a unique identifier. Every single page has a unique identifier. Every single website has a unique identifier. And Squarespace is doing their best practices. When you duplicate a section, duplicate a page, duplicate a website, it gives you a whole new set of IDs, because there should never be, in the rules of the internet, more than the same ID anywhere. And that's the best practices. So when you're actually duplicating a section, SquareKicker is applying that code to that unique identifier. And of course, that identifier has now changed when you duplicate it. So that code is no longer fit for purpose on that section.
Yes, I mean, it's unfortunate. Yeah, unfortunately, we don't actively strip out any code. It's just unfortunate that when it gets copied, it doesn't work. It's probably more accurate. So it is something we're always thinking about, and there are some technical hurdles to overcome if that were to be the case. But yeah, it wasn't an intention when we made the product that that's what would happen, but that's the outcome of the reality of Squarespace and our relationship with them.
And we are looking very deeply at how to do this, but obviously, as Rowan said, that the technical challenges of us having to create some sort of like watcher and map and identify and clone and recopy and paste. There's quite a bit of technical things to do there. So we have it in a roadmap to investigate that, how to do that. So that's in our future. So we'll be keeping you updated for sure.
I think another thing that's important to note is we're always trying to work in step with Squarespace. You know, we love Squarespace and what it can offer and all the goodness of that platform. And so anything we're doing as SquareKicker is always trying to come alongside and work kind of with them and not push too far against them. So we just take all of those steps quite carefully.
Yeah.
So this is going to be another one that is a non-answer, but can we bring SquareKicker to 7.0?
We've thought about this, and from purely from a business, and we're a small team. We're a team of 7. We weren't always 7. We were 4, and of that 4, we were 2 developers, and we can only do so much, and how we can do it. And noticing how Squarespace, where the direction they're going, they're doubling down on 7.1. And so 7.0 isn't getting as many features. In fact, they've even said that they're not going to be getting features like they are at 7.1. So it's likely that eventually sometime over time, they'll always support 7.0, but eventually 7.1 will be its future. And so rather than going to kind of double down on old features or things that keeping old legacy things going, we want to be going forward with Squarespace. And so as SquareKicker's features are developing, rather than making it more versatile for multiple platforms, we wanted to double down on more features for you on 7.1. So we can kind of make those faster, make more cool, exciting scrolling effects. If we were to go 7.0, we would not have scrolling effects, for example.
Building for the future.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
I'm not laughing at the comments, I swear. Good.
Awesome. So in regards to the uninstall, and there's a couple here, one from Rebecca and one from Colleen that kind of go together. So Colleen's asked, when I uninstall SquareKicker from a site and I finish, do the effects and custom code stay on the site?
No. Yeah. So if you remove it from your designer plan, everything stays intact. If your designer plan or your pro plan, your basic plan cancel, all those changes stay on your site. But if you uninstall, which is how we showed that process earlier, with the uninstall action, that is designed to remove your installation script and remove your SquareKicker code. So that's all gone. But if you're using it uninstall as a way to just remove it from your designer plan, then of course everything will stay with your site forever, unless you decide to again, remove it or uninstall it again?
We've got a few reasons behind that. I mean, yeah, if you stop paying for your subscription, just leave SquareKicker installed and everything will stay there. I mean, part of that reason is so if you want to, pick up, or someone different in future wants to pick up on that design and make some additional changes, it means they know that there's something there and they know how to then, edit that code or to update things if they need to. I mean, the original reason we actually made the uninstall feature was, in the earlier days, Squarespace had a policy where for them to supply customer support to websites, you were not allowed to have any custom code. So this is, again, us trying to work in step with Squarespace every step of the way. So we designed that feature so people could easily remove all of our custom code. They could then approach Squarespace, get the support they need, and then just simply reinstall it again and be back exactly where they were. So that was the concept behind it.
Yeah, I've heard some people say, I don't want them to know I've used SquareKicker, my clients, on the website, because they'll think that maybe I'm not as good a coder. So I want to remove that little SK button, because then they might think that I don't know what I'm doing. I think it's complete opposite. I think actually showing that you can use a tool, and when you hand off to a client, you're not telling them how to use this custom code. Don't delete this code. If you want to change this, here's the code where you go to. You're just saying, if you want to change anything, you don't need to come back to me. In fact, if you want to, you can, but you can use this cool thing called SquareKicker in your site, and it's way easier. It's this amazing new thing that's able to, you don't have to manage code anymore. And so much it's backed up, it's saved, it's, it's updated consistently, so you don't have to manage that code. So there's a lot of cool benefits of handing it off to your client. In fact, it might be, I haven't checked the logs, but one of our local clients was using SquareKicker, and they're really excited to actually wanting to see what we're going to talk about. So I think she was actually signed up to be on this webinar here today because she wants to say, I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys, and she's just one of our local clients we built a site for, and she's using SquareKicker to maintain that instead of always having come back to us to ask her to make more changes.
I mean, we try to keep a thumb on the pulse of, how we all started as designers ourselves, and we've done these handoffs ourselves as well. And we know that generally, if you're doing some awesome custom coding work on a website and they want to come back and make some changes later, there's really only two options. And that's they come back to you and pay you more money, whether that's good or not, that's up for you to decide. But the only other option, I've seen people actually, teaching some people some CSS basics to try and hand off so they can update things in the future. So I'd like to think that having SquareKicker would be a superior alternative than having to learn a little bit of CSS as a business owner. Yeah,
cool. Thanks, guys. And I think it's really important as well to note the difference between uninstalling, which was the process that you walked us through with the tips and tricks, and then stopping paying for your subscription, which is that stopping auto renew. So SquareKicker is absolutely designed so that you don't have to keep paying forever. So if that's kind of what you're asking with this question, yes, turn off that auto renew, all your code will stay, all your design will stay. But if you want to strip it completely, that's when you use the uninstall. And there's some great stuff on our website in the kind of tutorials, and then also in the FAQs that explain that really well. But if you're having any trouble, as always, just flick us a message. We're happy to answer that. Hopefully that answers both of those questions there. So the next one is, if I have another block overlapping on an image, do I need to apply the same scrolling effect on that block too, or is there an option to tether the blocks in that way as well?
Oh, well, we have this really cool thing called presets. And yes, there will be different timing, but if you want that same block it won't be tethered exactly because the block position is maybe slightly different, because if you apply a preset with scrolling animations on it, you can apply that same scrolling effect on another block with a preset. Now, the position of when that starts is going to be slightly differently, especially if the block is lower than the block that's being applied to. So you might get this kind of staggered effect. So if you want them all clumped together, that might be quite hard to micromanage them because that scrolling position won't be there. And especially if it's on a smaller screen size, that block might be moving up and down. So even if you really tried hard to make those timing, it's always going to be pretty much impossible to make them exactly the same unless it's one specific asset, which unfortunately, that's where a position like Canva would actually come in quite handy, because that's actually one image that's all tethered together and that whole thing is moving together as one. But that, of course, loses the freedom and flexibility to quickly changing those images around. So I guess lots of different use cases for what you're trying to accomplish.
Cool. Thanks for that question, Rachel. So the next question here will be from Evelyn, and is the best way to hide a block on a certain device to change the width to 0, or is there a better way to hide / display a block on certain devices?
That's a great question. We used to, when we first started, had visibility on a block. And we decided really quickly that was a bad idea, because when you turned off visibility on the block, it would hide the block. And then you lost it and you couldn't select it again to turn it back on. So
we needed lost and found box.
Yeah.
Blocks is kind of part of that problem. Yeah. I mean, we had it so, if you get rid of the whole thing, and then, all that content in a section is kind of leaning against each other. So you take out that one block and a bunch of things are going to sort of fall or sort of jockey position. But then that's good, because then you actually get to see what it's going to look like with that block not there. The problem being is, how do you then select that block to get back? The alternative to that is the block stays there and we grey it out. If you have used device visibility for sections, you know what we mean by that. By we grey it out, we say this is hidden with SquareKicker. So in edit mode, you can see it and you know how to get it back again. So we considered something similar for blocks, but if you do that, then it doesn't actually remove it, which means the rest of the content doesn't actually shift, which means you're not actually getting to see in real time what it's going to look like when you leave edit mode. So it was probably a little bit of a almost a user interface issue more so than a technical one, but it is something that we're always thinking about.
You can, however, any SquareKicker tool, most of the SquareKicker tool, let's just say, will have a visibility inside the block, so it won't hide the block. It will hide the image inside the block. So if you open up an image block, go into image, inside there you'll find visibility and you can hide that. But of course, every Squarespace block is equipped with a 17 pixel outer padding. So then you'll see this kind of block, but it's sitting there, a floating space. So then you have to go to block as well and do no bleed on that. So you actually get to kind of see not just a line of where the image was, but everything else inside is hidden. We are looking at kind of improving different ideas. We have some exciting things coming forward about how to actually make that more manageable. So nothing we can release now, but it should be a lot easier in the future to be able to do that kind of method.
Awesome. We'll just flick through a couple more questions here and then we'll sign off. So Nadine's asked, will there be a mini designer plan for those of us who only design one site at a time, or 2 or 3?
Great question. I answer a lot of your questions on customer support around this. So the designer plan wasn't necessarily geared for you have to have 10. It was, the limit was 10. And so the best value comes if you have 2 or more websites. So if you're a person who's doing one website at a time, that might be $19 or $29 a month. And that, of course, is going to be way cheaper than, say, $59 or even annualized $39 for a designer plan. But as soon as you get to 2 websites and you're designing, maybe you want to look at using 2 at the same time, even to change or edit, or they overlap within that monthly period, you're spending, let's say if it's a pro plan, because all pro features are included into a designer plan, that is 2 pro plans, which is $20 each, what ends up being about $58. Now, as soon as you take an annual designer plan for $39, you're already saving a huge amount, and it also gives you the ability to scale. So really, if you're having one website at a time guaranteed, $29 or $19 at a time per month is the best fit. But as soon as you're going to ever need more than 2, you're way better off on an annualized plan to kind of get you that next level, and you're super scalable, and you don't have to worry about, oh, I have to go back in to make that one tweak. I need to resubscribe for a month. You can just add it to your designer plan and carry on. So it's not really a mini designer plan option. It's anytime you're having 2 or more, that's the best fit for you.
And the options that are available in designer plan, those advanced features, are also available in the pro plan if you are just wanting to work on that one at a time level.
I mean, to split hairs, the only difference between designer and pro really is, in the designer you get more of them, and you do get access to some early beta features in the designer plan. Otherwise, I think of pro personally as a singular designer website is kind of how I think about it.
Yeah, exactly. And that was part of the reason we designed that piece of SquareKicker where you don't have to pay forever. It's because we wanted to make it really affordable for you as a designer to be able to use it on clients' websites and pass that off without either taking that ongoing cost on yourself or passing that on to your client, because we know that's always really hard when you pass on those ongoing costs. So hopefully that works well for you there. So Mark has asked, can we have more rollover changes, please, especially on navigation? So those hover kind of features.
We're doing some stuff.
Where's Hayden? No.
Yeah. We got some really exciting things just downstairs happening, which should be released in the near future, with some things in the header and the menus for mobiles, overlapping screens and things. So there's some cool stuff happening there. The trick with hover is it was a proof of concept with a button, and we wanted to see if we can make it work and to make it really intuitive. And that was our first use case. And of course, we thought we could take hover everywhere and we went to images and immediately thought, okay, we hover on an image and something happens. Well, what happens to the text then? What happens if you hover on the text? How do you target the text and the image and the button and hover? So there's a lot of interesting use cases in images, for example, and summary block is a whole nother minefield because there's images and there's text and titles and postscripts and buttons. Which one do you hover on and what do you change and how do you make that really intuitive? So that's the complexities, but the button was the easiest one and we started there. But we have some exciting new developments coming forward on how we actually change hover on specific things like a header link or a button in a navigation link. So I'm not sure if you want to add any more to that, but
no, I mean, I don't want to make excuses. We're always trying real hard, I swear. But yeah, it's interesting. We often have two different issues here that we try to approach. It's obviously the actual coding issue of the right CSS or the right JavaScript to achieve the outcome that we want. But honestly, that's become one of the easier parts of the process. The hardest part is actually the UX and the UI, and actually how do you make it, intuitive and interactive and in real time, just that full WYSIWYG experience. That's actually one of our greater challenges. So that's probably the reason why it's taken this long. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. I think we'll wrap up the Q&A session now. Appreciate your questions. If you've got any really specific kind of design questions or something that's specific to a site, throw us a support ticket, hello@squarekicker.com. And we're always happy to answer you there. It's normally one of us replying to your emails. So now you'll know what faces to put with those emails. If it's kind of a general question about what's coming up with SquareKicker or what features we might be working on, the best place to pop that is in our Squarespace community group on Facebook. And we'd love to see you there. It's a great place just to interact and chat with each other, and we can answer some of those questions about what we might be working on. Like I said earlier in the intro, there are some really big pieces that we're excited about this year for ways just to really extend that empowerment of you as designers. And no doubt we'll be splashing some of that out in the community and sharing that with you as we go through the year. So thanks for joining us, everyone. We really appreciate your time, and we'll catch you next time.
Cool. Been fun.
Yeah, may the 4th be with you.